My wife asked to go on a date with another man. I said no. But when she kept pushing, I finally gave in. The worst mistake I ever made? Maybe. But little did she know, I was watching every move she made. Every hotel receipt. Every late-night text. Every lie. She thought she was so clever, playing me for a fool while building her escape plan. When she finally asked for a divorce with that smug smile on her face, she had no idea I was 10 steps ahead of her. Never underestimate a man who knows his worth. My name is Owen Sullivan. I'm 37 years old, and I've been married to Amber for almost 9 years. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and tied the knot in what I thought was the beginning of our happily ever after. I'm not the kind of guy who throws around words like soulmate, but I really believed we had something special. Looking back, I realize our marriage started showing cracks about 6 months ago. It wasn't anything major at first, just small changes in Amber's behavior that seemed odd, but not alarming. Like how she suddenly became glued to her phone. Now, we all use our phones plenty these days, but this was different. She'd be smiling down at the screen, completely engrossed, but the moment I walked into the room, her expression would change. She'd quickly turn the phone over or press it against her leg. "Who are you texting?" I asked once, trying to sound casual. "Just some people from work," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "Planning a project." I let slide. I trusted her, after all. Why wouldn't I? Then came the changes in her appearance. Don't get me wrong. Amber had always taken care of herself. But suddenly she was buying new clothes, wearing makeup I'd never seen before, and spraying on perfume that cost more than our monthly cable bill. She'd spend an hour getting ready before heading to work, but when we had date night, 20 minutes, tops. "You look nice," I commented one morning as she put the finishing touches on an outfit that seemed more appropriate for a night out than a day at the office. "Thanks. We have clients coming in today." She kissed my cheek quickly before heading out. The late nights started next. Suddenly Amber had meetings that ran long, impromptu drinks with colleagues, and work emergencies that needed her immediate attention. When she did come home, she'd barely acknowledge me before heading straight to the shower. One night, when she came home after 11 p.m., I was still up watching TV in the living room. "Hey, how was your meeting?" I asked. She froze for a second, like she'd forgotten the excuse she'd given earlier. "Fine. Just long. We're working on that big project, you know." I didn't know. She'd stopped sharing details about her work months ago. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling while Amber slept as far away from me as possible without actually falling off the mattress. I reached out to touch her shoulder, and she flinched in her sleep. That flinch, it hit me right in the gut. When had my wife started recoiling from my touch? I told myself I was overreacting, making mountains out of molehills. People go through phases in marriage, right? This was probably just a rough patch. But deep down, in that place where you know things you don't want to admit, I was starting to suspect that something wasn't right in my marriage. I just didn't know how wrong things were about to get. The next few weeks were like watching a slow-motion train wreck. I kept hoping things would turn around, that Amber would snap out of whatever funk she was in. But instead, the distance between us grew wider. Our bedroom, once a place of connection and intimacy, became a Cold War zone. It had been months since we'd been intimate. Whenever I tried to initiate anything, Amber had an excuse ready. Headache, tired, early meeting tomorrow. Eventually, I stopped trying. My pride couldn't take any more rejection. "Is everything okay with us?" I finally asked one night as we sat at opposite ends of the couch, the TV filling the silence between us. Amber barely looked up from her phone. "Everything's fine." "Why wouldn't it be?" "Because you barely talk to me anymore. Because you flinch when I touch you. Because you're always on your damn phone." She rolled her eyes. "God, Owen, you're being dramatic. I'm just busy with work. Too busy for your husband." I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. I sounded pathetic, needy. She sighed dramatically. "I don't have the energy for this right now." And that was that. Conversation over. When we did talk, it was about superficial stuff, bills, household chores, schedules. The deeper conversations we used to have about our dreams, fears, and future had evaporated like morning dew. One Saturday, I suggested we go out for dinner, maybe catch a movie after, something to rekindle the spark. "I can't tonight," Amber said, already dressed in an outfit that definitely wasn't meant for staying home. "I promised some people from work I'd meet them for drinks." "Which people?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Just some colleagues. You don't know them. Maybe I could join you? Meet some of your work friends. The look of panic that flashed across her face was so brief, I almost missed it. It's just shop talk, Owen. You'd be bored out of your mind. As she headed for the door, I noticed she was wearing the expensive perfume she'd bought recently, the one I'd never smelled on her when she was with me. That night, I sat alone in our house, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of us laughing, holding each other, looking into each other's eyes like we couldn't believe our luck. When had that couple disappeared? And who were these strangers living in their house? I tried calling Amber around 10 p.m., but it went straight to voicemail. She finally came home after midnight, slightly tipsy and smelling of cigarette smoke, though neither of us smoked. Good night, I asked from the darkened living room. She jumped. Jesus, Owen, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark? I didn't answer her question. She didn't answer mine. As I lay awake that night, listening to Amber's steady breathing beside me, I realized something had to give. Either we needed to address whatever was happening, or I needed to prepare myself for the possibility that my marriage wasn't what I thought it was. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I'd had a rough day at work and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home. I'd even picked up takeout from Amber's favorite Thai place, hoping to spark some connection between us. I found Amber at the dining table, scrolling through her phone as usual. I set down the food and started unpacking the containers. I got your favorite, I said, sliding a plate of pad thai toward her. Extra peanuts, just how you like it. She glanced up briefly. Thanks, but I'm not that hungry. As I sat down across from her, she set her phone down and took a deep breath, like she was preparing for something. My stomach tightened. So, she began, her tone suspiciously casual. I wanted to talk to you about something. I nodded, my fork halfway to my mouth. Brandon from work has invited me to dinner Friday night. There's this new fusion restaurant downtown he thinks I'd like. My fork froze midair. Brandon? You mean just you and him? Like a date? She rolled her eyes. Come on, silly. He's just a coworker of mine. And he's not like you. He appreciates fine dining. We're just going to have dinner together and maybe catch a movie after. I love you, but I want to do this. The way she said it, like I was being ridiculous for questioning my wife going out alone with another man, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice steady. I'm not comfortable with that, Amber. Dinner and a movie with another guy? That's a date, no matter how you spin it. Her eyes narrowed. So you don't trust me? Is that it? This isn't about trust. It's about respect. Would you be okay if I took some female coworker out for dinner and a movie? That's different, she snapped. Ow, I challenged. It just is. God, Owen, I didn't realize you were so insecure. And there it was, the deflection, turning my legitimate concern into a character flaw on my part. I'm not insecure. I'm your husband, and I'm telling you I'm not okay with this. Amber pushed away from the table, her food untouched. You know what? Forget it. Forget I asked. I'll just tell Brandon my controlling husband won't let me go. That's not fair, and you know it. What's not fair is being treated like property. I thought I married a confident man, not some jealous teenager. Each word was calculated to hurt, to make me doubt myself, to frame my objection as unreasonable. But for once, I didn't back down. The answer is no, Amber. I'm not okay with my wife dating other men. If that makes me controlling in your eyes, so be it. Her face contorted with rage. She grabbed her phone and stormed out of the room, the sound of our bedroom door slamming echoing through the house. I sat alone at the table, the food growing cold, wondering when exactly my marriage had turned into a battlefield, and how much longer I could fight a war I was beginning to think I'd already lost. The days following our argument were brutal. Amber had transformed our home into an emotional icebox. She barely acknowledged my existence, and when she did, it was with cutting remarks and dramatic sighs. I never thought you'd be the kind of husband who tries to control who I can be friends with, she said one morning, her voice dripping with disdain. I didn't respond. What was the point? In her mind, I was already the villain. The silent treatment continued for days. Amber would come home late, make a show of sleeping on the far edge of our bed, and leave early in the morning. Any attempt at conversation was met with one-word answers or accusations about my toxic jealousy. You know what real confidence looks like? She asked over a silent breakfast. It's trusting your partner enough to let them have their own life. I set down my coffee mug. And you know what real respect in a marriage looks like? It's not putting yourself in situations that make your spouse uncomfortable. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about outdated thinking. After a week of this treatment, I was exhausted. The constant tension, the subtle jabs, the feeling of walking on eggshells in my own home. It was wearing me down. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I should just let her go to dinner with this Brandon guy and be done with it. But a voice in my head kept warning me, this isn't normal. This isn't how a committed wife behaves. Friday morning, as I was getting ready for work, Amber approached me with a softer expression than I'd seen in days. I've been thinking about our argument, she said, perching on the edge of our bed. And I think we both overreacted. I waited, suspecting there was more coming. I don't want to fight anymore, Owen. It's stupid. We're adults, and we should be able to have friends without it turning into this big thing. I agree that we shouldn't fight, I said carefully. But my feelings about you going on a date with another man haven't changed. Her face hardened for a moment before she forced a smile. What if I promise it's just dinner? No movie. I'll be home by 10. I studied her face, looking for sincerity, but finding only determination. She wasn't asking anymore. She was telling me in the gentlest way possible that she was going, regardless of how I felt. Do whatever you want, Amber, I finally said, too tired to keep fighting. You're going anyway. Her face lit up with victory, poorly disguised as relief. Thank you for understanding. I promise it's no big deal. As she bounced out of the room, already reaching for her phone, I had this sinking feeling that I'd just failed some kind of test. I'd given in not because I was okay with it, but because I was too exhausted to keep fighting. That night, as I watched Amber get dressed for her non-date, new dress, full makeup, hair done perfectly, I realized something important. This dinner wasn't the real problem. It was just a symptom of something much worse. Sometimes the universe has a way of handing you the truth when you least expect it. That's what happened to me the morning after Amber's dinner with Brandon. She didn't come home by 10 as promised. Not even close. I tried calling her around 11, but it went straight to voicemail. She finally stumbled in after midnight, slightly tipsy and wearing a guilty smile. Sorry I'm late, she mumbled, dropping her purse on the counter. We lost track of time. I just nodded, too exhausted to start an argument that would lead nowhere. The next morning, Amber slept in while I got up early. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her phone buzz on the counter where she'd left it charging overnight. A notification appeared on the screen. Brandon, last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. My hands froze around my coffee mug. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But I couldn't. This was the confirmation I'd been dreading. With shaking hands, I picked up her phone. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. Maybe she'd been too tipsy to remember, or maybe she'd grown careless, confident that I wouldn't invade her privacy. I scrolled through her messages with Brandon. What I found made me sick to my stomach. Flirty exchanges, plans for their dinner, explicit messages about what they wanted to do to each other. This wasn't a new work friendship. This was a full-blown affair. There were photos too. Nothing explicit, thankfully, but selfies of them together at restaurants, at a park, even one in what looked like a hotel room. The timestamps showed this had been going on for months. What are you doing? I looked up to see Amber standing in the doorway, her face pale. Finding out the truth, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. You went through my phone, she gasped, outrage replacing guilt on her face. How dare you? How dare I? How dare you, Amber? I held up the phone. You've been sleeping with this guy for months, lying to my face, making me think I was crazy for suspecting something. She lunged for the phone, but I held it away. It's not what you think, she said, switching tactics, her voice softening. Really? Because I think you're having an affair with Brandon, and I think you've been gaslighting me to cover it up. Owen, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been fucking some guy from work while telling me I'm controlling for not wanting you to have dinner with him? What possible explanation could there be? Tears filled her eyes, whether from genuine remorse or from being caught. I couldn't tell. I was going to end it, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. Those words, the classic cheater's defense, snapped something inside me. I handed her back the phone. Pack a bag, I said quietly. I want you out of this house by noon. This is my house too, she protested. Then I'll leave. But I'm not spending another night under the same roof with someone who could betray me like this. As I walked past her toward our bedroom, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. The uncertainty that had plagued me for months was gone, replaced by a cold, clear certainty. My marriage was over. I ended up being the one to leave our house that day. Not because Amber had any right to stay, but because I needed space to think clearly, away from her tears and manipulations. I checked into a hotel downtown and took a personal day from work. Sitting on the edge of the hotel bed, I felt something shift inside me. The shock and heartbreak were still there, but something else was emerging. Resolve. Amber had betrayed me, lied to me, and manipulated me. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative any longer. I called my buddy Mike, a divorce attorney. We'd played basketball together for years, but I never thought I'd need his professional services. "I need advice," I said when he picked up. "Off the record for now." 2 hours later, we met for lunch in a quiet corner of a restaurant far from our usual haunts. "Document everything," Mike advised after hearing my story. "Screenshots, bank statements, anything that proves the affair. Start separating your finances immediately. And whatever you do, don't move back in until you've got a solid plan." That afternoon, I opened a new bank account at a different bank and transferred half our savings. I wasn't trying to hide assets. That would bite me later, but I needed to protect myself from Amber emptying our accounts in retaliation. Next, I pulled our credit card statement for the past 6 months. What I found made my blood boil. Charges at hotels, expensive restaurants, even lingerie stores on days when I was out of town. She'd been using our joint credit card to fund her affair. I called our phone company and requested detail call logs. Brandon's number appeared dozens of times, often in hour-long calls late at night or during her work trips. By evening, I compiled a dossier of evidence that would leave no doubt about what had been going on. I sent everything to my personal email, backed it up on a flash drive, and locked in a safety deposit box at my new bank. Amber called 17 times that day. I let each call go to voicemail. Her messages evolved from angry, "How dare you go through my phone?" to tearful, "Please come home. We need to talk," to manipulative, "If you ever loved me, you'll give me a chance to explain." I listened to each one, feeling oddly detached, like I was observing someone else's drama. The woman I thought I knew didn't exist. Maybe she never had. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Brandon. Amber gave me your number. I think we need to talk man to man." The audacity was almost impressive. I typed back a simple response. "The only talking I'll be doing about this situation will be with my attorney present." Then I blocked his number. As I lay in the unfamiliar hotel bed, I realized something surprising. Beneath the pain and betrayal, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For months, I'd been walking on eggshells, doubting myself, living in a fog of half-truths and manipulation. Now, at least, I knew where I stood, and I was standing my ground. After a week at the hotel, I returned home, not because Amber had convinced me to come back, but because I refused to be driven from my own house while I prepared for what was coming. The look on Amber's face when I walked through the door with a cold, businesslike demeanor told me she hadn't expected this. "Owen," she rushed toward me, arms outstretched. "I'm so glad you're home. We need to talk about everything." I sidestepped her embrace. "I'm just here to live in my house while we sort things out. I'm not interested in reconciliation." Her face fell, then quickly rearranged into a wounded expression. "You won't even hear me out?" After 9 years of marriage, I heard everything I needed to in those text messages. Living with Amber while planning our divorce was surreal. We move around each other like ghosts, sharing space but not connection. She tried everything to draw me back in, cooking my favorite meals, dressing provocatively, crying at strategic moments. When none of that worked, she switched tactics. "I ended things with Brandon," she announced one evening. "It was a mistake, a stupid fling that didn't mean anything." I looked up from my laptop. "That's between you and him. It doesn't change anything between us." As the days passed, I noticed a shift in Amber's behavior. The desperate attempts to reconcile gave way to a strange confidence. She started staying out late again, coming home with that familiar secretive smile. She spent hours on her phone, no longer bothering to hide her conversations. One night, she didn't come home at all. No call, no text. She waltzed in the next morning wearing yesterday's clothes, not even attempting an explanation. That's when I realized she thought she'd won. She thought I was staying because I couldn't let her go, that eventually I'd forgive her affair if it meant keeping her. In her mind, she had all the power. Little did she know that while she was playing house with Brandon, I was methodically building my case. Every late night, every unexplained absence, every suspicious charge on our joint credit card was documented and sent to my attorney. The private investigator I'd hired was compiling a report that would leave no doubt about her ongoing infidelity. Amber grew bolder by the day. She'd take calls from Brandon in the next room, laughing loudly enough for me to hear. She'd make plans right in front of me, not even bothering with the pretense of working late anymore. I might be home late tomorrow, she said casually over breakfast. Don't wait up. I just nodded, marveling at her confidence. She thought she was holding all the cards, that the worst was behind her. She had no idea that her every move was strengthening my position for when I finally played my hand. Let her think she's won, I thought as I watched her sashay out the door. The overconfident player never sees the checkmate coming until it's too late. It was a Wednesday evening when Amber finally made her move. I'd been waiting for it, sensing the shift in her demeanor. She'd grown increasingly confident, almost cocky, in her comings and goings. Tonight, she'd prepared dinner, a rarity these days, and even opened a bottle of wine. We need to talk, she said as we sat at the dining table, barely touching the lasagna she'd made. I looked up from my plate. About what? She took a deep breath, her expression a carefully rehearsed mix of regret and resolution. I think we should separate. There it was. The bomb she thought would devastate me. Little did she know I'd been expecting it, preparing for it, even hoping for it in some ways. I see, I replied, my tone neutral. Her brow furrowed slightly, clearly thrown by my calm response. She'd expected tears, anger, begging, anything but this composed acceptance. It's just, she continued, recalibrating her approach. I think we've grown apart. We both know this hasn't been working for a while. I nodded, waiting for her to continue her script. I still care about you, Owen. I'll always love you in some way. Her voice had a practiced quality to it, like she'd rehearsed these lines in the mirror. But I'm not in love with you anymore. The classic line. The go-to excuse for every cheater looking for an exit that absolves them of guilt. And you decided this when, exactly? I asked, my voice still steady. She looked down at her wine glass. I've been feeling this way for some time. I just didn't know how to tell you. When you were sleeping with Brandon, perhaps? Her head snapped up, eyes flashing with momentary anger before she composed herself. That was a symptom, not the cause. Our marriage was already in trouble. I almost laughed at the audacity. Her affair wasn't the problem. Our marriage was. Classic blame shifting. I think we should keep this civil, she continued, shifting to what was clearly the next point in her prepared speech. We can split everything fairly. No need for drama or expensive lawyers. And there it was, her endgame. A quick, clean break where she controlled the narrative and probably walked away with half our assets before running off with Brandon. Whatever you think is best, I said mildly, taking a sip of wine. Relief washed over her face. She'd expected resistance, arguments, accusations. My apparent surrender had caught her off guard, but in the most welcome way. Thank you for understanding, she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. I let her touch me, fighting the urge to pull away. Let her think she'd won. Let her believe this would be quick and painless, on her terms. As she cleared the dishes, humming softly to herself, I watched her with a detached curiosity. She really thought it would be this easy, that after betraying me, lying to me, and manipulating me for months, she could simply announce her departure, and I would roll over. She had no idea what was coming. The morning after Amber proposed our amicable separation, she was practically floating around the house. She hummed while making coffee, smiled at her phone, and even wished me a cheerful good morning. All signs of a woman who thought she'd successfully navigated her way out of a marriage with minimal consequences. I waited until she left for work before making my move. Today was the day all my preparation would finally pay off. At precisely 9 a.m., I called Mike, my attorney, and gave him the green light. By 9:30, the divorce papers were being delivered to Amber's office, not by a process server, but by Mike himself. The papers included full documentation of her affair with Brandon, complete with timestamped photos, text messages, and hotel receipts. Around 10 a.m., I got the text I was waiting for from Mike, delivered. She's in shock. I smiled grimly and proceeded to phase 2. I drove to our bank and closed our joint accounts, transferring all remaining funds to my new secure account. I'd been siphoning money to this account for weeks, not to hide assets, but to prevent Amber from emptying our accounts when she realized her plan was falling apart. By noon, my phone was blowing up with calls and texts from Amber. I ignored them all, let her stew for a while. I was sitting calmly in the living room when Amber burst through the front door at 2 p.m., her face contorted with fury, makeup streaked with tears. "How dare you?" she shrieked, flinging her purse onto the counter. "You had me serve divorce papers in my office? In front of everyone." I looked up from my book. "Hello, Amber." And the bank called me. "The accounts are empty." She was practically vibrating with rage. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can." And I did. I set my book aside. "You should read those papers carefully. I've documented everything. The affair, the hotels, the lies. Every penny you spent from our joint accounts to finance your relationship with Brandon." Her face paled. That's invasion of privacy." "No, Amber. That's gathering evidence of your infidelity and financial misconduct during our marriage. Evidence that will be quite relevant when we discuss asset division and alimony." She sank onto the couch, her anger giving way to disbelief. "You planned this. All this time while you thought I was a broken man who would take whatever scraps you offered." "Yes, I planned this. I played the long game while you were thinking short term." "I'll fight you," she threatened, her voice quavering. "I'll get my own lawyer." "By all means," I replied calmly. "But you should know I've spoken with Brandon's wife too." Her head snapped up. "What? Oh, did he not mention he was married? With 2 young children?" I smiled without humor. She was quite grateful for the information. "I believe she's meeting with her own attorney as we speak." The color drained from Amber's face as the full implications hit her. Not only was her plan for an easy, profitable divorce crumbling, but her future with Brandon was likely going up in flames too. "You've ruined everything," she whispered. "No, Amber. You did that all on your own. I just made sure you couldn't profit from it." As she stumbled back out the door, phone already pressed to her ear, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a grim sense that justice, cold and imperfect as it was, had finally been served. 6 months passed like a strange dream. The divorce proceedings moved forward with brutal efficiency, largely thanks to the mountain of evidence I'd collected. Amber fought at first, hiring an aggressive attorney who made grand threats about taking me to the cleaners. But evidence speaks louder than threats, and once her lawyer saw the full dossier Mike had compiled, their strategy quickly shifted to damage control. Brandon disappeared from the picture almost immediately. According to mutual friends, his wife had filed for divorce and was seeking full custody of their children. He couldn't afford to fight both legal battles, so he chose his family. Amber was collateral damage in his decision, discarded as quickly as she'd been acquired. Without Brandon or the financial windfall she'd expected from our divorce, Amber's carefully constructed future crumbled. She moved in with her sister temporarily, then took a job in another state. Our last communication was a terse email exchange about selling the house, which netted far less than she'd hoped due to the split and her responsibility for legal fees. I ran into her sister Kelly at a local coffee shop about 4 months after the divorce was finalized. "How is she?" I asked, surprising myself with the genuine concern in my voice. Kelly sighed, struggling. "The job didn't work out. She's dating someone new, but..." She shrugged, leaving the sentence unfinished. I nodded, understanding the implied instability. "And you? How are you holding up through all this?" "Better now that she's moved out," Kelly admitted with a rueful smile. "Turns out having your bitter sister sleeping on your couch for months isn't great for your marriage." We shared a laugh, awkward but genuine. Before we parted, Kelly squeezed my arm. "You're a good man, Owen. What happened? It wasn't because you weren't enough. Some people just can't appreciate what they have until it's gone." Those words stayed with me as I rebuilt my life. I sold the house we'd shared and bought a smaller place closer to downtown. I joined a hiking club, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the drama of my marriage's collapse, and even started dating again, cautiously, with my eyes wide open. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things ended with Amber, if I wish I'd confronted her earlier or tried harder to save our marriage. I always give the same answer: no. What I regret is not trusting my instincts sooner, not recognizing the red flags for what they were. But the ending itself, that was inevitable from the moment she decided to betray our vows. The most important lesson I learned wasn't about Amber or marriage or even infidelity. It was about myself, about finding strength I didn't know I had, about standing firm when it would have been easier to crumble, about refusing to be a victim of someone else's choices. That's the thing about betrayal. It can break you, or it can forge you into someone stronger than before. In the end, I chose the latter, and that choice has made all the difference.